The Street Traffic and Refuge Committee will be called to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Murphy. Here. Alderman Kotar. Alderwoman Boyd.
Here.
Alderman Bosley. Here. Alderwoman Martin. Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Here.
Chairman Boyd.
Present.
5 present. You have a quorum.
Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to literally be talking trash, pun intended. There has been a lot of discussion and concern about increasing the fees to $3 and not really seeing a benefit as far as the deliverable of trash services. So I just want to get an update from when we taxed our constituent additional $3 or where we are on delivery of trash services. This is meant to be a conversation that can help move deliverable of services to a better point than we are today. We're going to have Nick Young from, he's a commissioner of refuse, right, Nick? Okay, and then we're going to have Alan. Is Alan here?
Right there.
From Forestry? Okay, Alan from Forestry, Dottie from Citizen Service Bureau, and Sergeant Calabra from the Trash Task Force to give presentations to kind of bring us up to date. So I try to make sure every stakeholder that was part of this would be present today. And if there are any members of the public that would like to voice concerns or give accolades, we invite you to please come and sign up. And with that, the first person will have Nick Young, our Refuge Commissioner, come up and kind of talk to us about the Refuge Department, personnel, how it operates, and some statistics. So.
Okay. You want to ask questions or?
No, we'll just, for the record again, just tell everybody who you are, Nick, and then kind of walk us through your department.
Okay. I'm Nick Young. I'm the Commissioner of Refuse. I've been with the city 46 years. Our operation is fairly simple. It's complicated to explain, but we've had more complaints than usual due to the fact that our fleet is old. We have 25 trucks that are 18 years old, and the industry normally replaces their trucks between 7 and 10 years. So we're getting twice as much life out of our trucks, but they break down constantly. In the last year, or 14 months, there's been about 10 days when we had enough trucks to put on the routes. The biggest problem is equipment services needs more mechanics. We've been cut 17 positions in the last 3 years, which is over 10% of our workforce. We're having a real problem keeping drivers. We hired 80 drivers and 50 of them left over the last 5 years. Personnel did raise the pay, which helped, but it's still not high enough. Trying to think what else I need to tell you. We have 40,000 dumpsters in the alley. We have 26,500 dumpsters, 40,000 carts, and 5,700 recycling dumpsters. We get about 21,000 complaints in a year. That's not all complaints. Those are work orders. Some of those are requests for information. When's my bulk pickup? When's my trash pickup? Things like that. We're moving our entire operation to 1200 Central Industrial Drive in about a week. So we've concentrated all our forces down on First Street, but we're going to move 80% of that operation to the Central Industrial Drive. So we'll be centrally located. It should cut down on some of our transportation costs. We pick up about 140,000 tons per year of trash, about 20,000 tons of yard waste, 16,000 tons of recycling, and we get trash from other city departments, and we collect from city buildings. As you know, there was a $3 increase on the trash bill recently, And that has been used to fund the trash task force cameras and their operation. It's been used to it's going to be used to purchase dumpsters and refuse trucks. So far, we've gotten 9 new trucks in. We're going to get another 8 between now and the next 3 months. What did I leave out? We have 149 full-time employees, and we employ 10 seasonal workers to help out with bulk pickup in the summer. Our budget is about $18 million. I think that's pretty much it, Alderman. We have 24 routes north of Interstate 44 and 31 routes south of Interstate 44. And the people with dumpsters get 2 solid waste pickups, 1 yard waste pickup, and 1 recycling pickup. The people with carts get 1 solid waste, 1 yard waste, and 1 recycling pickup. We also have bulk collection, which is 3 items a month. We get a lot of aldermanic requests, probably 600-700 a year. Our best guess is 600-700. Joe Vaquero accounts for probably a large percentage of those. Basically, we need more mechanics. We need to add more truck drivers. They've cut us 14 truck drivers, and that's not good. And we need to replace other equipment that we have in a division besides just refuse trucks. And that's all I can think of, Alderman.
Okay. Let me see if members of the committee, we don't get a chance to talk to you that much in person, Nick, so this is a great opportunity. Matter of fact, some committee members have probably never met you before, so that's a good opportunity for people to know you. So on that, I think I saw Randy earlier, Randy Brightonfield, pretty much, a lot of people call Randy. I just want to acknowledge him here. He does a great job for refuse. When we call about constituent complaints or need for additional services. So let's go down. Alderwoman Murphy, questions?
I guess just one. Will that $3 increase help with replacing some of the personnel that you said you've lost?
No, the $3 increase doesn't provide any funds for salaries.
For salaries at all? So that part will stay the same? Okay. I think that's all right now. Thank you.
Alderwoman Boyd?
Yes, how are you, Nick?
How you doing?
All righty. My question is, and I keep asking this question, maybe you can answer. Because when I was first elected, that's the first thing I heard about was the trucks, that you all needed so many trucks because your trucks had broke down. When you all have the end of the year to get ready to do your budget for the new year, do you all have a piece in your budget where you ask for equipment in that budget? Because we do it every year, so do you all have where you put trucks or whatever equipments that you need in that budget?
There are no trucks in our budget. There's no
So-
money. There's no money for trucks.
So your budget is only for salary and what?
The 2 big items are salaries, which is about $7 million, and the transfer stations where we dump the trash, that's about $8 million. And those are the 2 big items. The other items are insignificant compared to those 2.
So would those 2 items go under capital budget or a capital line item?
We ask for trucks every year.
That's what I was trying to
Our
find out.
problem is we don't get them.
Okay. And so when you do submit your budget to the city, those trucks, your equipment is a part of that request? That's what you tell them?
It's a separate request because usually it's not funded. So we put in a regular budget, which includes the people, and then a separate budget for capital equipment, which hasn't gotten funded, I don't know how long.
Okay, and I think that's where I'm leading to with all the departments. That's the challenge that I see coming from the corporate aspect. Because normally when people do budgets, they have capital budget piece. And so whoever they're submitting the information to, that's looked at to make sure you get them. And so I'm looking at us as a city have to purchase all of these trucks at one time, which if we had did it gradually, it wouldn't have been such a financial impact on the residents or on your budget. So that's the questions I had.
Okay.
With that, Alderwoman, is that the only question right now?
One more.
Okay. 'Cause I was going to ask Paul Payne to come up and address that. I think he can better address that question.
Okay, the other is the cameras, you know, the big topic of conversation that everybody's having.
Okay, I'm going to ask that you hold that for the Sergeant Calabra. He's going to talk about the trash task force.
That's not what you said.
No,
Go
we're gonna
ahead.
have-
Go ahead,
We're going to have
Jeffrey.
them all come. Because Nick's not going to really be able to address that.
Okay.
So we're just asking Nick questions as it relates to refuge.
Trash, okay.
Okay. But, Paul, could you come up and talk a little bit about the Alderwoman's question about trucks? But Nick, don't go anywhere. Just side. He's going to help you out.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman,
Good morning.
members of the committee. Actually, I do have a
And
handout.
Paul, tell everybody who you are. And
Yes,
what-
I'm the budget director for the
Okay.
city, so. I do have a handout for you, actually, a couple of handouts, and which you might find helpful. The first will be an exhibit illustrating the revenues or the allocation, the supplemental appropriation we did earlier in this year for the refuse fee, and the where it was allocated, so just as a refresher. And the second exhibit will be a planned vehicle replacement cycle for the refuse division that was taken up at the capital committee this year once that fee increase was passed last fall. Okay, so briefly, if just looking at that first exhibit, if you remember, the $3 fee went into effect this past fall. It was a partial year, and we're estimating at $2.7 million. On a full year basis, it would be $3.6 million. And it was allocated across those various items: the public health and safety, which is for the cameras, some refuse receptacles. About half of it is going to refuse trucks, and then we have the transfer station costs and the trash task force. So the item that I'd like to focus on are the trucks. So if you can see, half of the new revenues there were allocated towards truck purchases. And so that brings me to the second exhibit, and I apologize for the small print, but it's got a lot on there. And Alderman Boyd, as your question, this pertains to your question, we were looking at what's the optimum replacement cycle we can achieve using this $1.8 million per year. Because we knew, as you stated, you buy it all at once and then they go bad all at once and you're caught without any funding. So what we looked at was what the potential life cycle was for each truck and whether and how to maximize the purchase leverage of the 1.8 million. In the first year was 1.35. And so what we ended up devising was a plan that would combine both outright cash purchases as well as lease purchases. So in some instances we'd be financing, and in other instances we'd be actually just laying out cash purchases. So if you look at the payment breakdown by fiscal year, we actually, in this fiscal year, we had allocated $1 million for actual cash payment of purchases for new trucks, and about $335,000 for a lease purchase. In total, that would provide replacement for 13 total trucks. If you look up there, 12 of those would be side loaders, and one of them would be rear loaders. And then the next year, you'd have to continue to pay that lease payment, and then you'd have additional funds for cash payments of about 6 trucks. And then you just keep going down that year until FY20, and it becomes 13 trucks, and FY21 it becomes 8. And it's a mixture of between actual cash payment for the purchase, and as the lease purchases roll off, you introduce a new lease purchase. But what I'd like to also call your attention to is that graph where it says average truck age, because what the intent is to try to bring down the average age of the fleet. As Nick just mentioned, there are a number of significant trucks that are over their useful life. And right now, at that point, it was just below 10 years was the average life. But if we continue this path of this purchase cycle of combination of using these funds for both actual cash and lease purchases, we're able to bring down the average useful life down below 6 years, and that's the intent. And this was a 10-year schedule. So it puts us on a schedule with a dedicated source of funds, which will be in the budget each year, for replacing the vehicles. Now, it does take a little bit of time, and I think one of the biggest challenges you have with refuse right now is the aged fleet. So if you don't have enough trucks running, they have to run on Saturdays and such like that, and so that limits your capabilities. But I think this schedule actually gets us to a point where you want to be, and it's just going to take a couple of years to get there, but it's a good thing.
Paul, the only question I have with the lease, so I know when you lease, it comes up to maturity. So what are you all gonna do? Are you gonna purchase them after the lease contract is up, or?
Yeah, the average, I believe the length of the lease purchase was 7 years. So at the end of the 7 years, you basically own the truck.
Right.
And at that time, you continue to replace, then you go into a new lease for a new set of vehicles, which, again, although not all of them are going to be lease purchase.
Okay.
But at the end, you actually own it. Others will be purchased in cash, because you're trying to get that balance to bring that life cycle of the vehicles down below 6 years.
Okay, all right, thank you. Sure.
Okay. Alderman Bosley. We still have Nick Young up there.
Yeah, I got questions for Nick Young. I appreciate you all. Sure. First, I do want to say thank you all for coming. The other day, I had a really big issue with kind of one of my alleys being filled. We reached out to Nick Young, and they took care of that, so definitely want to say thank you for that. In reference to trash in general, besides just utilizing the cameras, sometimes you can go through an alley where the trash has been picked up, and the trash will be put, the dumpsters will be put right back down on top of some trash that may have fell out of the dumpster. Of course, we know, you don't really need cameras to go back and watch kind of how that happened. What is it there we can do to kind of prevent that from happening, or at least kind of correct that when that does happen? Because I can go through a lot of my alleys and see the trash under the actual dumpster. So
We rely on people like you and citizens to call us and let us know. We do counsel our employees when they do that, because it doesn't do anybody any good to set the dumpster on top of trash. If you see it, let us know. We do have foremen in the field, but of course, the city is so big that it's hard to monitor every driver all the time. But if you see it, let us know, and we'll take care of it.
okay, thank you. What would you say is like the average time it takes you in an area to remove, I guess, a large dump site, like the one that we kind of had over on University the other day?
I can't recall. What was the exact details on that one?
We had an alley that was full of debris. We had about 7 to 8 piles of,
Okay.
everything, tires, bricks, wood, all
We
kind of stuff.
normally get help from the Forestry Division. They have loaders and trucks that they can clean up a big mess like that fairly quickly. If we do it by hand, it takes forever.
Shout out to Forestry. Thank you, Alan.
Forestry helps us out quite a bit.
Yeah, so we appreciate that. We get a lot of complaints also with people saying that their trash hasn't been picked up in, 2 or 3 weeks. And, maybe the people down the alley's trash were picked up and theirs wasn't picked up. Is there a certain reason why that happens sometimes?
Well, every time we get a call, my trash hasn't been picked up in a month, my trash hasn't been picked up in a year. Usually we're 2 to 3 days behind. Occasionally we do get truck problems such that we get farther behind than that, but usually we're only about 2 or 3 days behind at the most.
Okay. Just wanted to put it out there. Thank you.
If we miss your trash for a year, make sure you call me.
We will get the call way before a year.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Hi.
One of the biggest complaints that I have from constituents would be the rollout carts, once they're empty, being put in the middle of the street, and cars are dodging rollout carts.
Okay.
Is there any type of training that drivers go through?
Yeah, we do have a training program. I want to introduce Gary Kilpala. He's my, raise your hand, Gary. He's my superintendent. He developed a training program for our new drivers. We probably need to extend it back to some of our old drivers, but we do put them through a, how many weeks? 2 weeks? 4 weeks. 4 weeks training program. So,
Is there like a follow-up? Because I noticed with one of the drivers in my area, as far as coming to stop signs in the morning when kids are out, he just goes straight through them. And U-turns in the middle of the intersections, and I see this in the morning, so,
okay, make sure you give me the address and we'll track him down.
okay.
Is that it? Okay. I have several questions, Nick. So you mentioned drivers are leaving at a rapid pace. Over 5 years, I think you said, you lost like 40 drivers, is that correct?
We have 70 drivers.
How many drivers? You say you lost X amount in 5 years.
No, what I'm talking about is new hires. We hired 80 people.
Okay, 80.
And over the last 5 years, and 50 of them left.
And is that because of the pay, pretty much, or is it something else?
Part of it's the pay, part of it's the fact that they don't want to drive the old trucks.
Okay.
And we also eliminated the incentive program about 7 years ago, so now they have to work the full 10-hour days. And
So they work 10-hour days, how many days a week?
4 days a week.
4 days a week. Okay.
Wednesday is the day off.
Do you know how much money we're generating on recycling?
We actually have to pay to get rid of recycling. Years ago, we had some income. The recycling goes mainly to China, and China has become very strict on what they'll accept. So they actually charge us $15 a ton to get rid of the recycling.
Compared to how much for trash, regular trash?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I just have to find it. It's roughly,
Nick, he just told you.
Page. $34.
it's a little higher than that, but it's close. It's 30, yeah, he is right. I'll be darned. It's $34.39 a ton for trash, $26.38 for yard waste, and $15.79 for recycling.
Okay.
And of course, the majority of it is trash. 3/4 of what we pick up is trash.
So when we first came out with this program several years ago, we actually made money. Is that correct?
From recycling, yes.
But now it's,
Well, you had to deduct the cost of picking it up and buying the dumpsters, but yeah, we made some money.
because that was what was exciting about the whole recycling program, that it actually would save the city money. We did not anticipate having a rate increase on trash service for a long time, but obviously that didn't pan out. So talk about how many trucks again do you have total right now?
85.
You have 85, and you have how many drivers?
Maximum is 70. We never get to that, but we try.
Okay, I've noticed in my ward on Saturdays and Sundays that trash is picked up
Yes,
on
sir.
a regular basis now. And is that overtime drivers? Is that what's going on?
Yes, it is overtime.
Okay. And you know how much it's costing us for overtime?
Last time I looked, it was about 350,000.
Do you find that your drivers are willing to do the overtime, or is it?
Some are, some aren't interested.
Yeah. I had an opportunity, what was that, I guess last year, to come and meet with some of the refuge workers. Special group of people. So, they tell you what's on their mind, which I can really appreciate.
Yes, they do.
And
I think I was there for one of those meetings.
and I think we need to do a better job at supporting them. I've seen more trash trucks towed away with the big tow trucks, I guess. What's our failure rate per week on trucks breaking down?
Oh, Chris Amos is the Commissioner of Equipment Services.
Okay.
Our situation with the trucks is pretty dire.
I'm sorry, Chris, tell us again because it's kind of hard for people
I'm
to.
Chris Amos, I'm the Commissioner of Equipment Services, so I'm the guy who's supposed to keep the trucks running for him so he can do his operation. Basically, because of the fleet age, much less because of its failure due to stress keep a truck running for 18 years, that's 10 years longer it was designed to run. So I have to keep 54 trucks a day on the peaks for his operators to be run all the routes Monday through Friday. We have been running about 45 to 47 a day. So every day we fall behind, which is why he's having to work the Saturday and Sunday. Recently, during the cold weather, when it got down to about 10 degrees, we had four-day work weeks, we got down below 30 trucks for the first time in several years. So with my guys working as hard as they can work and working as much overtime as they can physically tolerate, we can't physically keep those trucks running the way they are. So there are two solutions to that problem, one of which is underway, it's replacing trucks, and that's happened gradually. The program that Paul laid out for you means those trucks, the fleet itself, will probably be well in about year 3. So what delivered this year plus 2 more years, then I think the last 7 years will be on par all the time. Until that happens, though, we have to plus up our maintenance staff. Last year in the budget, I asked for 2 additional technicians for refuse. Instead, I got cut 2. So basically, I have 4 less people working on trash trucks today than what we knew we needed because of staff cuts. And so, under those circumstances, there isn't a chance that I can keep enough trucks running for next people to pick up all the trash. So when he says he can't pick it up during the week, he's absolutely right. He cannot pick it up during the week because we can't keep enough trucks running for him. Now, we do have a plan amongst the 2 departments involved to try to mitigate these problems and to get on top of it. And there are a lot of things that have to be changed in order for that to happen. But there's a good possibility that by the summer, when the next batch of new trucks come in, and we're hiring additional contract employees to make up the difference in the workforce, that we'll be able to get to the point where we can stabilize what the situation is and go back to Monday through Friday pickups. But it might not be Monday through Friday, 1 shift a day like it is today. It might look a little different. So the gist of it is that we either have to put more money into maintenance, of which we're spending $3.6 million a year now just maintaining these trucks and fueling these trucks, or we have to have the trucks replaced, and that's in plan, but it takes a while. Like 4 trucks got delivered of the $3 tax so far, the fee increase, and 6 more due in June, and then we'll have 3 more due in August. So we have a tendency, myself included, to think that once we put a plan in motion that solves the problem, that it happens quickly, but it doesn't. The funds for the lease purchase that the trucks will be delivered this summer wasn't even available till December. So it takes a little time once we get in a roll, but I do think that we have a good plan. So I appreciate that the alderman passed that and that the capital committee supported a plan that makes sense. And I think we will get on top of it, and you will see the complaints come down because Nick will be able to do his job. But it's not something that can happen overnight.
Chris, what are those 2 jobs you said you asked for 2 additional and they were cut to?
I asked for two technician threes, tech threes, which are diesel truck mechanics, of which we already have 8 working full-time on just refuse trucks. So you would think that 8 people working full-time plus the support people to keep 80 trucks on the road seems like, well, that's plenty, right? But it's not, especially when you're talking about old trucks. And so the 2 I asked for were 2 additional tech threes, but instead I got cut 2 tech threes.
Paul, I'm sorry, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Paul Payne.
Thank
So Paul, if the constituents are complaining that the deliverable of services is inadequate, and we know that some of it's because the trucks are old, and we need more mechanics to keep them in the street, in the field, why are we cutting positions instead of adding if we expect people to deliver quality services?
Well, I mean, this discussion you just had with Mr. Amos was about last budget year, before the $3.6 million fee increase.
Okay.
Now, you could choose, I mean, if you, when it was all allocated, to say, hey, we need more mechanics or something like that, and we could have done it that way, but that was not how it was allocated when you passed the bill.
Right, and so, notwithstanding the $3, because we know with the $3 we agreed that it was gonna be spent on, that shouldn't mean that we don't continue the same level of resources allocated to a department to be functional, right?
What, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Mr. Amos was talking about an additional couple of positions to address it.
Right, but he said instead he was cut to.
It cut the addition, he had requested an additional couple of positions and it wasn't granted.
So it wasn't like he was at 10 and he asked to go to 12, but he went to 8.
That's my understanding. I don't have it in front of me, but that's what I thought the discussion
Okay,
was. Yes.
so he said that is what happened.
Yes.
He had, making this number up 10, he wanted to go to 12, but he went to 8. He said that is what happened. And I'm not on Ways and Means, but I see the chairman of Ways and Means here. He was here anyway, Frank Williamson, Alderman Williamson. But that's what's very frustrating to me, is that we keep cutting and cutting and we expect to deliver the same quality of services. I mean, we just can't. You know, we can't do that. We have to at least maintain the basic level of services. And I'm gonna speak from me. When we do these extra taxes and these extra fees, I think that we're going to be enriched with better services and more opportunities. But what tends to happen is we just shortchange somewhere else, use the money what we promised to use it for, but then we take money away from somewhere else. So it's like, well, I gave Refuge $3 million extra dollars. Yeah, that's because of the extra $3. But you took away $2 million from the regular revenue.
And we've had this discussion many times over the years.
Right.
And you know the challenge with the general revenue, and there's always a structural budget gap. And as we've met and talked with different aldermen over the last number of days and such, with additional revenues, and we've had several over the last year, none of which have been allocated toward the structural deficit we've got within our budget. So it's okay to, I mean, you can allocate revenue sources, say, hey, I want to address this need, and this need. But the bulk of the services are provided by the general fund.
Right.
And within that general fund, there is a structural deficit, if you will. So
Right.
that will always be a continuing challenge unless that gets addressed in the long term.
Here's the unfairness, Paul, in my mind. We've always had free trash for as long as I can remember until we instituted this trash fee several years ago. So when you start asking people to pay for something, we should be 100 on what we ask them to pay for. Because if we outsourced it, God forbid, you know, we would expect 100% delivery of services on the days that we're supposed to have it picked up. We wouldn't expect the trash truck to come on Saturdays and all this, on Sundays and all this other stuff. So I don't think it's fair that, and I understand that, you know, the General Revenue Fund, it funds all the departments across the whole city, but we're talking about trash. We're talking about people paying for their trash services. In my mind, we can't shortchange them, period. Because it's not fair, because they're paying for it, and we're going to give them raggedy services, and that's just not fair.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I think there's a reason why you deal with the budget all at once. It's because rather than address it with this need and this need and this need independently, you see all the needs laid out, and you're able to establish your priority and say, this is what we need to fund. Those are difficult decisions to make, and you can't make them in a vacuum. So while I appreciate that, your point, I think there's a reason why you have a budget process and where it's presented to you as one budget, proposed budget, so now you can make those decisions and say, if this service is more important, then you put more money into it and you cut something else, and that's the process.
Got you. So what I heard you say was it's on the administration. If the administration makes it a priority that we're going to deliver 100% of the services that people are paying for, then it happens.
Well, I mean-
or the aldermen get involved and demand that it happens because on Ways and Means you can move money around and hope E&A support you.
It's all part of the budget process,
Okay.
both the E&A and the board.
I just want to make sure that I am going to stand firm on the fact that I want to see 100% of the services delivered to the people because they're paying for it. So I will be watching Ways and Means. I will be asking employees of Refuge how things are working and keep them anonymous, but I don't think they're going to lie to me because I will make sure I verify as well. Because we have to do a better job, Paul. And you have one of the toughest jobs in the whole city, and you know I respect you, and we battle back and forth, you know. You win most of the time, but I'd like to think that I win when it's critical to me. Okay, Paul.
Sure.
Let me,
Chairman, may I add one more thing?
yes, go ahead, Chris.
To make sure you have the whole picture. Didn't want to throw Paul under the bus acting like he just arbitrarily cut the position, because that's not what happened. We actually have a difficulty hiring technicians within the city. And so at the time when this decision was made last year in the budget, we had 9 positions vacant, of which they cut 2 of the vacancies. But now we have 11 contractors on a separate BPS contract filling those positions because we can't find city residents who will work in those jobs. And so we have filled the positions by hiring contractors when we can't find civil service employees to do that. And so I didn't want you to think that you just arbitrarily said, you know, they're going to cut them when I asked to plus them. The problem was that we cut the positions and we didn't add contract dollars, so it had the same effect of reducing the amount of staff we have turning a wrench. But it does look, when you go through the budget process and you've got a bunch of vacancies, you know, it's hard to justify keeping those funded in the budget, and so that's why those cuts were actually made, I believe.
Well, I think that's probably another conversation with the personnel director on why is it complicated for us to fill certain positions. Thank you, Chris. Nick, okay. Nick, explain to me the difference between bulk and debris.
Our bulk crews are responsible for keeping everything picked up in the right-of-way. Every alley, every street, we collect those items. Forestry does private property primarily. We get help from them when we need it. If there's a large pile of tires in an alley or a large pile of bricks or dirt, forestry comes to our rescue. But for the most part, refuge stays in the public right-of-way. Forestry works on private property.
And is that just a gentleman's agreement that you operate like that? Or is there any reason why refuge cannot go on private property and remove 4 tires?
We extend about 10 feet off the alley. If we would stop our bulk pickup crews to clean a vacant lot or do a special project, they wouldn't finish their routes.
Right. No, I understand that. 'Cause here's an example that I didn't appreciate because it took months. There was 3 tires on a porch of a vacant piece of property that happened to be owned by LRA, by the way, so it wasn't like it was privately owned. It took over 2 months to get somebody, and I don't even remember who actually got the tires off. But when I called Refuge, Refuge says, oh, we don't go on private property. But then it's like forestry go on private property. We're talking about people going and taking their hands. You didn't need a front loader because forestry comes in for big stuff. That's debris, right? So you didn't need a front loader. But, so what I hear you saying, we expect forestry workers to go in and grab bulk stuff and put them out, but we don't expect refuge workers.
We've had some bad experiences going in private property. We had one of our supervisors go on private property and fell through the porch. Physically collapsed. We've had people accuse us of stealing items, if it's occupied property.
No, I'm not talking about occupied. We're talking about vacant. I wouldn't expect you to go in someone's yard and start taking stuff. I'm talking about vacant property.
We can handle requests like that. Just give them to me and I'll make sure we get them.
Okay, because I'm gonna go back, I'm not gonna let you get away with that example. So your example was a refuse worker would go on a porch, he could potentially fall through, and so you don't want to risk that.
Well, there's liability if you.
Right, but
yeah.
a forestry worker has the same liability. So what's the difference? It's okay for a forestry worker to fall through the porch, but it's not okay for a refuse worker? I mean, I just didn't see the logic in that, Nick.
I understand. Alan Jankowski.
And he's almost up, too.
He's the forestry commissioner.
Hi, my name's Alan Jankowski.
Just in
Forestry-
time, Alan, so we're going to go right into your
That
presentation.
sounds good. So it's if a private property, then, one man's trash is another man's treasure. So we have to send out a violation letter and make sure that, and give the property owner a chance to take that debris and remove it for themselves. And if they don't remove it within 7 to 10 days, then we'll have a hearing, and then if they don't comply, then forestry goes in and removes that debris.
Okay. While you're there, we're going to go ahead and get, so Nick, thank you. I may call upon you before the rest of the meeting is over with, but thank you, Nick. Again, Nick has been with the city for 46 years, Nick? 47. 47 years?
46.
46, okay. And the whole time refuge?
Yes, sir.
All right. Some people on this committee haven't been breathing that long, Nick.
You call me on me, we'll take care of it.
Thanks, Nick. So Alan, talk to us about, your crew. How many people work for forestry? How do you manage all this debris? Of course, I know I call you quite a bit to remove stuff.
So forestry, we take care of trees, we take care of weeds, and then we take care of debris. And when we're at peak season, we're a little over 200 staff members. I guess we'll kind of talk about our debris here more so than anything else.
Yes, sir.
But one thing we do with kind of preventative maintenance with our debris, we have a debris team, district debris it's called. So we go from ward to ward with this district debris team, and we run up and down alleys. We get all our service requests for debris in each ward, and then we tackle that ward all at one time. There are 9 crew members on that team. We have 4 trucks, and we have 4 large loaders. And this past season, we started out in Ward 22, and we started there in September, and we ended up right before Halloween in October. So we were there for just a little over a month in that ward. And we took out, we were able to service 387 vacant lots, 385 vacant buildings, and we took out 138 loads of debris, and we took care of 34 loads of tires. From that ward, we went to Ward 21, and we started at Halloween, and then we ended just mid-January, so we were in that ward quite a bit. Looks like a month and a half. Again, we serviced 642 vacant lots, so we were in there a little bit longer, and we serviced a lot more properties. 707 vacant buildings. We took out 272 loads of debris and 68 loads of tires. And then we went to Alderman Pam Boyd's ward. We've been in there since January 16th. So far, we've serviced 262 lots, 255 buildings, and 119 loads of debris, 24 truckloads of tires. So we're still in there, and I don't know, I don't have an end result. I don't know when we're going to pull out of there. But so that team will go throughout the whole city. So wards 22, 21, and 27, we won't be back in those wards until we do all the other 28 wards. And hopefully, I know we're hitting those wards now, and there's a lot of debris especially the ones on the county line there, the city-county border. And hopefully when we get to the other wards, we'll move that team along rather quickly. But that's district debris. And not to say that they're the only ones that pick up debris. So we have our weed team out there too, and they have 6 loaders also working. So when they get service requests, and they're going throughout the city with their service request, and if they come up and they need to cut a lot, and there's a bunch of debris on there, well, they have loaders too to scrape up all that debris. So I guess some stats I can give you from our district debris in fiscal year 16. We took 2,340 loads to the transfer station, and we took care of 7,873 vacant properties. Total properties we serviced in 2016 was 12,779. In 2017, total properties were 10,000, and so far this year, our fiscal year 18, we've serviced 5,783 properties. CSB complaints, or CSB requests. Looks like in 2014, just for debris, 2014 we had 6,715, we had 7,000. In 2016, we went up to 8,000 and 7,000, a little over 7,000 in fiscal year 17, 7,559 actually. So that's kind of, I guess, that's our debris team. And we go up, we go down alleys, like Nick was saying. If it's more than, say, a couple of wheelbarrows full, since their crews do it by hand, then they'll call us, and we'll come in with our front loaders, and we'll load up anything that's in that alleyway. If it's LRA lot, we'll go ahead and tackle that right away. If it's a private property, then we have to go through that process to make sure we're not removing anything that's valuable. Even though we may think it's litter, it may be valuable to the person that's living there or that owns that property.
Okay. We'll take questions. Alderwoman Murphy.
No questions, thank you.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Hello, Alan.
Hello.
First, I want to thank you and your crew. My residents are blowing my phone up, thanking me. 'Cause they said they haven't seen that many city trucks in quite a few years over there, so thank you very much. But I guess my question is, and for the committees to understand, Alan and I have been trying to work a plan to be proactive for the summer. And so what we have in the 27, we have a sanitation beautification committee, and what we're trying to do is set it up where forestry will know who lots they don't have to hit. Like we found out it's a billboard company that's taking care of the lots, so that kind of relieves forestry so they don't have to worry about it. So that's what I'm trying to do, but I'm trying to find out, is there any suggestions, and I think I've asked you this, or plan that we could come up with to try to strategize how to address it, because it's going to get spring and then stuff is going to start growing.
Right, right.
So I'm just trying to get proactive to see what we could do as residents and then to support forestry to kind of keep stuff down.
The biggest thing that I've seen, I've been to several ward meetings, and a lot of residents don't understand from the curb line to the middle of the alley, that's their responsibility.
Right.
And so we'll go up and down a lot of alleys, and there'll be a lot of, not necessarily debris, but even just a lot of limbs and weeds growing.
Right.
And those, that's the property owner's responsibility to keep that trimmed back and keep that cleaned up.
Right.
And a lot of people, I don't think they realize that they'll be like, well, that's outside my fence, but that's still your responsibility, the homeowner. So I've seen that in a lot of wards. And just, we're from the curb line to the middle of the alley. That was one big thing that I've seen so far since I've been with forestry.
And I know when I got elected, that's what I started doing, mailing out to blocks the ordinances and highlighting that you're responsible for 3 feet in front and 3 feet in back. And it's surprisingly, a lot of people are calling and they're saying, I didn't know that that was mine. I thought it was the city. I said, no, that's yours. So we're trying to educate people on that. But I think your biggest challenge and our biggest challenge are the LRA properties.
Yeah.
Because, you know, let's just be for real, they are the biggest determinant in our whole community because they're not taken care of properly. So is there any plan that you think we could do with that?
Yeah. I mean, not off the top of my head. And, I
Okay.
mean, we're just, the biggest thing from my crews is how to police it. How can we prevent this illegal dumping out there? And it sounds like there's some momentum on that end, which is nice. And, because we go to several, last month, we went to Lowell, we went to Arlington Place, and our crews went out there and worked a week cleaning up those alleys. And within 2 weeks, we had to go back. And we spent just as much time in there. So it's that dumping that continues to take place that's really hampers us. Because, I mean, we're in your ward right now, but, I mean, that district debris is going to be a while before they come back. And you know, once we're gone for 2 or 3 weeks, there's going to be them work orders are going to
Right.
skyrocket in your ward.
Right. Thank you, Alan.
Alderman Bosley.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I also think you have been doing a great job.
Thank you.
The residents in my ward have been extremely happy over the summer. Of course, we got areas that need attention, but certainly appreciate the work. As far as the debris team, when you move out of one area and we call in, you know, and say, hey, this area that you may have just left out of is riddled with trash again. It's a lot of debris everywhere. Even though you're in another area, does that just sit there until you come back 6 or 9 months down the line, or how does that? How do
No.
you usually address that?
So that's that kind of that district debris. That's our preventative maintenance kind of team. And then we have the weed control. So they have 6 loaders of their own. So they'll be the ones kind of coming up. We try not to mess with the district debris and let them kind of roll.
Let's do that.
And that way all the service requests will then go toward the weed control. And then they're the ones that will have to pick up the slack there.
Understood.
Yeah.
So sometimes when the crews are out, and of course, I don't want to put blame on anybody, but this does happen. When we're out cutting grass, and when they're out cutting grass, they'll cut up paper with the grass that is on the actual lots. They'll run the machines through and run right over lots with trash on them. I mean, a lot. Is there any way we can have, I guess, a team of individuals clean up these lots before we run the lawnmowers over them, or the front loaders over them?
And that should be the weed control again. They should be picking up as much litter as they can before they chew up. We get in a lot of those lots where the grass is 2 feet tall and some of that stuff's laying on the ground. They are instructed to pick up as much litter as they can, but there's a fine line there, because we could spend all day picking litter up in 4 or 5 lots, and then it just cuts our time in half. But I understand it looks horrible when they're finished. and
Yeah,
all that.
the trash is
laying
all over
everywhere.
the street. You have to
So-
wait for street cleaning day to, for it to
Right.
get up. It's because it's thousands of little pieces at that point. And
No, and if they do, then, if it's really bad, we need to get out there with some rakes and rake it up and bag it up and take away as much litter as we can.
okay, is there a reason why in particular? Because we spoke this summer, and I wanted to see if there was a way we can allocate funding to possibly have a special team of individuals like we kind of had cutting, what is it, was it Paul McKee's lots this summer, cutting the residential ones was for the 21st Ward? Was that, how did that pilot, can you kind of explain that pilot program for some of us that might not know about it?
So we had McKee Brothers, and I believe it was Imbo Green, and we cut four different wards, and they just did vacant buildings. And it worked well. I mean, it helped us increase our vacant buildings up to, I think it was like 4 or 5 rotations from 3. So it did help us. It increased our capabilities, capacity. They will be doing that again this year, and we have allocated funds for that.
Is there any way we could possibly have another group doing the same thing? Because as that program increases and they do take on more wards, I'm sure their productivity will decrease at the same time because they taking on more. Are we looking at ways where we can kind of expand that? Because I would love to have the same thing. Of course, you can't do everything. The grass grows every few weeks, especially when it rains. Well, first of all, how much was it? How much does it cost for them to do that per summer?
Oh, man. I
Is
don't
it
have
per
that
lot
figure
or-
right in front of me. I'm sorry. Greg, do you know, Greg?
Alan just started in August, so in fairness to him, I think the initial.
I'm sorry, Greg, some of us know who you are, but we are on camera, and can you just come up if you have something to say so people know who's
Greg,
giving
on chill mode.
commentary?
I didn't mean to interject, I just wanted to.
Sorry.
if I do the
No, just
Greg
tell every-
Hayes,
okay.
Director of Parks, Recreation, and Forestry, Brightside, St. Louis, and Soulard Market. Alderman, the initial contract was for about $180,000 split in half between Enviro Green and McKee Brothers. No relation and not cutting Paul McKee's properties. Mr. McKee has his own maintenance teams. So about $180,000. I believe currently going into FY19 budget, we have $100,000 and maybe some change. No disrespect, $30,000. So about $130,000 going into this year. We're looking at the wards again. We may mix it up a little bit. In reference to your comment about another team or something, I thought we had looked into that, and I believe we can't use ward capital funds to fund labor in that manner. It had to be to capital projects or capital equipment. But we're always looking at pilot programs to outsource. So we'll see how it goes in year 2. And it wasn't a cut in forestry's budget. It was additional monies for contractual services, which really help. Sometimes when you contract out, you're cutting their budget, our budget, and that did not happen. So that's why we got more frequency on the cuts in forestry, because we had these other 2 groups doing 4 total wards, if that helps.
Yeah, thank you. It helps a lot because a lot of people think we've got funding and we can just toss it wherever we want because we are aldermen, and they say, well, why can't you just do this or that? So it's good to get clarification sometimes so people can really have an understanding of the process and why you might see more wards getting attention here or there. Sometimes that understanding is we just need some clarification. So I really appreciate that.
And I have one additional comment, and I'll step away. I want to make sure everybody knows, when we go into budget every year, we have building divisions numbers usually lower than us because in terms of the number of vacant buildings in the city. But we're always adding them, taking them out based on occupancy. One thing I want everybody to know is we have about 40 individuals that cut 10,000 vacant lots.
Crazy.
So that is a staggering number. That's all we're afforded resource capability-wise annually. That is our static budget. So 40 people are cutting about between 9 and 10,000 vacant buildings, and we do those about 2.5 times a year. This year we got up to about 3 rotations based on the professional services. And we do about 7 or 8 vacant lot rotations with about 25 to 30 ag tractor drivers. When you look at those numbers, the resource capability pales in comparison with the demands that are put on us. That's not a cry for help, it's simply reality.
All right, is what it is.
But we discussed that at Ways and Means, and we're just thankful for any funding we get.
Is there any money in the budget for extra people to help cut grass, or are we working at capacity?
Not at this time. We have to meet an allocation budget that is going to be coming up. We're submitting it Thursday, and that will involve cuts and grass maintenance. We have to cut somewhere, so you pick your poison of where you want to cut, and hopefully we're not playing roulette and we lose those folks. We have to meet the allocation figure. We do the same thing as this year budget, and we submit a second budget meeting the budget division's allocation because they're obviously strapped for funds. And
Understood. So we potentially could have less than 40 people cutting these 10,000 lots this summer.
absolutely. We never go up from that 40. Those are 22-person teams, and that's why if you picture cutting your grass every 12 weeks, that's about what we do on buildings. We have 24 weeks in the season. We're cutting them basically every 8 weeks if we're really popping. 3 rotations a year. Buildings are definitely our albatross. We do okay, pretty good on lots. So, I'm sorry. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you very much. Yeah, we are pretty strapped for money. God, that is 40 people. I wanted to ask also about the teams. How many teams of individuals do you have that actually go and actually cut the trees, not the weeds, but we have like I've seen a team of 2 or 3 individuals that come down and just chop a tree down, and I've seen whole crews in the alley. So is there a certain way that's kind of broken up, or do you have a certain amount of teams that actually cut trees?
Yeah, so whoever's cutting the trees on the tree lawn, that's a completely different crew. So that would be the tree crew, and they manage all our trees and street trees, park trees, any public space. And then going down the alleyway, or your alleys, that would be the weed control. So that's a completely separate crew.
2 different. So weed
Yeah.
control has the same type of equipment as tree lawn?
Yeah, they're more just they're not being precise with their cutting. They're just clearing it out. They're just clear cutting. They may take that big front loader and just drag the honeysuckle completely out of the ground. Where the tree crew, they're making nice cuts, looking for that branch ridge, branch collar, and making healthy cuts for our trees.
Nice. Understood. Because we've got I got a few places in the ward where it's like a lot of weed trees.
Right, that would be weed control then.
Weed control.
Yep,
Okay.
Yep.
Definitely need to run some front loaders through our alleys this
Yeah.
summer.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate you. I don't have any more questions right
And
now.
that would, the same, if an owner, that's vacant lots or LRA lots, then that would be on us. But if it's the homeowner, then we would send a citation to the homeowner saying, hey, you need to clean up your back alley along your fence line. So that again would be on the homeowner. But if it's a vacant building, vacant lot, then it kind of falls on the forestry.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, Alderwoman Middlebrook. Alderman Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few questions, Alan. On your, I know you say you go to certain wards, you do a sweep, and you clean up ward by ward by ward, and this question might have been answered already. So while you're doing those sweeps, when you do have some other illegal dumping where you just maybe left a ward a month or 2 ago, do you have a particular crew that does circulate and come back when
Yeah.
you have a request to clean up?
Yeah, so again,
you
the
do have
debris, the debris team, we call them, they stay on rotation. We just keep them guys moving. And then there may be debris that they just left an alley. And if they're still in that ward, then they'll swing back. They try to take care of all those service requests. But as soon as they jump out of that ward, then we'll have a separate team go in there. And they're the ones taking care of all the other service requests.
And I know I get a lot of illegal dumping in my ward.
Yeah.
In particular, just a week ago. As aldermen, especially in North St. Louis, a lot of us are kind of glorified NSOs, or neighborhood improvement specialists, which we do, and I email my neighborhood improvement specialist too, but a lot of the constituents rely on us to get the problem solved, and a lot are not really educated or don't really understand the process of calling, CSB and the neighborhood improvement specialist. But just kind of prime example, last week I had a dumping in the alley between Vernon and Maple in the 5200 block. I think I sent you the emails on that. So I just happened to go by to take a few shots so I can send them to you. And lo and behold, I saw the violator out there. Had a two-tone green and gray Dodge Ram. Guy was out dumping stuff, throwing it, behind the building. So I took some pictures and what have you, turned it into you. So in saying that, and I know the trash task force can probably answer some of these questions too, but when we turn in those type of violations and we turn in that license plate, what is the process that as aldermen can we follow up to make sure that violator is prosecuted? Or what do we have to do to really check on that? Do you have an idea? And if you don't, if that's trash task force, we'll leave
Yeah.
it to him. I'm just
Yeah, I think he
okay.
would give you a much better answer than.
Okay, but when
I'm going to send it his way. That's
okay,
what
but
I'm
when I
gonna do.
turn it into you, do you file it, or do you file it to him, or what do you do when
No, I'll pass it along, especially one that the picture you had with that license plate number,
Right.
and then had the truck.
Well, I'm saying when I send it to you, will you send it to the trash task force? You
Yes.
do that?
Yep,
Okay, that's
yep.
what. Okay,
You sent that yesterday or last night?
Yeah,
and I'm
right.
Passed it along.
Got you. Okay, that's it for right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna circle back around to Alderwoman Murphy.
Hi, Mr. Pankowski. Thank you for everything. This may be a silly question, but isn't there something we can do about the lots? Like spray them or something? They're vacant, so no one's there.
Yeah.
And, I know pesticides is a problem, but is there something organic or whatever we want to say? So we wouldn't have to do this at all?
Yeah,
spray
issue
them once a
the
year,
issue
maybe.
that I see is if we put down a sterilant and then nothing grows in that area, then we start dealing with runoff. And then MSD is going to be on us for all that. Because when it rains, a 4 or 5 inch rain, that stuff's going to go right down our sewers. And then we won't be in compliance with that.
I knew there was a reason.
We wish. Yeah, one spray and then we'd be done all year.
By the way, Alderwoman, we've seen that movie. It's not a good movie.
It's a muddy mess, yeah. It's like
I want to go back, Alan, to something Alderman Bosley said with all the debris that's cut up all over the sidewalks and streets.
Yeah.
Now, your crew does carry the blowers, right? So
Yep.
typically you would blow that stuff either back on the lot or bag it up some kind of way, right?
Yeah.
Trash.
If there's trash, hopefully they're raking that up, picking that up. But any of the cut grass that's laying on the sidewalk
Right.
or on the street, we'll blow that back into the lot.
Okay, I want to just make sure because I don't know if I heard that. Did you hear that?
Did they blow it back on the lot?
Or they blow it and pick it up?
He said they make an attempt to pick it up. They're
okay.
supposed
Like
to be picking it up.
the grass we won't pick up.
No, I understand that,
But
but I
the-
want to make sure we were picking up the debris.
Yeah, the
Supposed to.
debris. We
Okay.
pick up as much as we can.
They do have
Perfect.
blowers, right?
Yep.
Okay, and if it doesn't happen, we just contact your office and they'll come back out and take care of it, right?
That should take care. Yeah, they should be doing that. That's part of the process.
Alan, I'm gonna help you. It's they will. They
Yeah,
will come back.
they will come
They
back.
should.
Sorry, they will come back.
Okay, Alan, thank you, and I really appreciate how Refuge and Forestry work together. So,
Good team.
appreciate it. Nick, I want to ask you to step back up. I did have a couple more questions I want to ask you. And one of them, Nick, is how we're charging people, for trash. So let's suppose someone moves. You're renting property out, is investment property, so the tenant moves out. What's the protocol to alert Forestry that it no longer has a tenant? Because sometimes it may be vacant for 3 or 4 months.
We continue to charge.
Okay.
It's an issue, but cost of keeping track of apartments and whether there's 3 people in there or 10 people, the occupancy rate, we hope that people keep their buildings occupied.
Right.
To track it would be very expensive.
Well, I'm thinking maybe we should talk more and explore that. Because it's not fair if an apartment was vacant for 6 months that the people just keep paying and there's no trash service being delivered. Or it could be a
Well-
two-family flat for that matter,
Right.
and both units are unoccupied, but the water is still on, which the trash bill is a
Yeah,
connected
if they
to
cut the water
bill.
off, we stop billing.
Got you. Okay, may want to have more conversation about that. The other thing that I think we can improve in, Nick, is when a dumpster needs replacement and the driver alerts his supervisor that the dumpster needs to be replaced, it needs to be replaced ASAP, because if the dumpster has a hole in it, the constituents are going to keep putting, and the driver's not going to pick it up once he realizes a hole in it. But I have an example, and I'm not going to give the route because I don't want to put the driver out there. But the driver showed me the notes, because I know I talked to Randy a lot, and he always said, well, the driver's supposed to write it down and call it in. This guy had a nice log. He had the date, you know, he put it in. It took over 3 months to get a dumpster replaced.
It shouldn't take that long.
That's not acceptable. So somebody's dropping the ball,
Okay.
and somebody needs to be held accountable when that happens, because they call us as the alderman and say, well, the trash can is not replaced, the trash can is not replaced. And again, going back to people are paying for it, the expectation that it's a rapid turnaround on
It
replacement
shouldn't take
of
us more
dumpsters.
than a week at the most.
Right. But for some reason, it takes more, and I wonder, I don't like to believe in conspiracies, but I just wonder if some people just don't care enough because of the neighborhood it's in to really deliver the type of service that should be delivered. And I think that we need to make sure we hold people accountable, and I believe documentation beats conversation. And I'm getting so many complaints about delivery of services that I want to make sure that things are being documented, and I'm going to be asking, you know, what happened? Because after it happened a couple of times, I mean, it's like we changed drivers, we changed supervisors, I mean, we do something.
We have an employee that goes out and surveys all the dumpsters once a year. And that's so when we meet with the aldermen and they want to know how many bad dumpsters they have, we've got an exact count. So he should be picking up on those, unless the hole is in the bottom and he can't see it. But
Right.
in most cases, it's all the way around. that
But
it
the
rusts
point,
out.
the point, Nick, is it's happening, is what I'm saying. It shouldn't be, I don't understand, it shouldn't be, they should do this, they should do that, but they're not. And we need to really make sure that we fix that. The other question is, Randy hustles us every year for $40,000, $50,000 for dumpsters. Since we're paying this $3 fee, we don't have to pay for dumpsters anymore out of capital, right?
I don't think we've got enough out of that $3 fee to cover.
Are we cutting it in half?
Let me get my notes.
And then if they want new dumpsters, I put that, if I'm paying for your people.
But I know we spend a lot more on dumpsters than, in a year's time, we normally buy 2,500 dumpsters and 1,500 carts. And I don't think that the money that the $3 generators are going to cover that expense.
Okay, well, I think I'm gonna ask Paul this, because I knew it was in the budget. It shows right here, 675,000 partial year for refuse receptacles and 900,000 for a full year. So, Paul, would you mind explaining that, like how much, how many dumpsters or roll-out carts would we get with,
Actually, I have to defer to those that purchased the dumpsters on that
Oh,
one.
okay.
That was just the amount that was actually set aside for
Gotcha.
purchases.
Okay, so Nick, the question is, how much do we need to spend annually for dumpsters and rollout carts? Because I would like to save $40,000, $50,000 of my capital to do something else besides pay for dumpsters.
5 is half of what we need.
It's half, okay, so instead of 40 or 50,000, we'll only be asked to do 20 or 25.
Probably. Some wards are in very good shape with dumpsters. Other wards don't have any.
So, good. I'm sorry the alderwoman from the first ward is not here, because I know this is a real sensitive subject with her. What are we doing with aldermen that don't pay into it? I I mean, do their constituents just not get dumpsters? I mean, that couldn't be right because they're paying for trash service.
That's pretty much the case. There's only
Really?
3 or 4 aldermen that don't buy dumpsters. The rest of them do. But those 3 or 4, we tried and tried and tried, and
So what you're saying is there are certain wards where the aldermen, more than one, where the aldermen are not allocating money for dumpster replacements, and therefore they're not being replaced. Therefore, the constituents are not really getting the value of the services they're paying for.
we can give you a list of all the wards and how much they,
I'm not sure. Now, that's a broken system that we definitely have to fix, because I just,
well, we're gonna take that 675 and divide it 28 ways.
okay. And so then, but still, at the end of the day, certain wards will not be whole, I guess is the concern. Because if I'm paying $14 a month for trash pickup, and the dumpster is not being replaced because the alderman is not allocating the money, and therefore, the dumpster that used to be behind the house that serviced, let's say, 4 buildings, now you have to go, 200 feet down the alley in order to get to a dumpster that you're gonna overload because it's at the, I mean, you see how that system's a little broken?
Yes, how much capital money do you get a year, roughly?
I'm not sure. That's not the point. The point is, if aldermen are not putting money in the pot and constituents are not being serviced, that's not a fair system. That's a broke system. And I'm assuming the alderman needs to be held accountable. At some point, we need to take the alderman out of it. The alderman should not be responsible for paying for dumpsters because the constituents are paying for dumpsters
Okay.
at the end of the day. So we need to look at fixing that system. That's the point I'm trying to make, Nick. And I know it's not your fault. I'm not blaming you. I'm asking you the question so I know where the hiccups are and how do we move forward to fix it.
The $14 a month doesn't support our operation.
I know.
It doesn't cover the trucks, it doesn't cover the dumpsters, it doesn't cover the carts, it just covers the daily operation of picking up trash.
Right. I understand.
And
And therefore, they should have a dumpster to put the trash in, right?
yes,
Okay.
but that $14 is not sufficient to cover that.
But it's enough for them to have a dumpster. That's my point.
Okay.
Okay.
I had 2 things I wanted to say.
Go right ahead. This is open conversation.
One thing is you mentioned how many tires on the 4 tires? Or,
Yeah, an example,
Okay.
4 tires sitting on a porch.
We pick up 60,000 tires a year.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a lot.
And when you look at a garbage truck, in a year's time, we pick up 30,000 garbage truck loads.
Of tires. Of tires, 30,000 garbage.
Oh, no,
Just
of
the
trash. I'm sorry,
okay.
of trash. So imagine a line of 30,000 garbage trucks, and that's how much trash we pick up in a year.
Oh, no, you guys have an awesome job and responsibility. And this is not to beat up on you at all, Nick.
Okay.
It's to figure out where the system is broken and how we help fix it. I mean, it's just like if Paul's trying to take all the money and you can't hire good help, then we have to say, Paul, please put the money back so we can hire good help. That's what this is all about.
Tough job.
Oh, he has a brutal job. I mean, God bless him. He should get a raise. But that's ENA.
Enough money to cover.
Paul, I'm for you getting a raise, okay? I don't care what my colleagues say.
We're in a
Let's go to, I'm sorry, Alderman Williamson, want to ask a question.
Hey, Nick.
I'm sorry, Nick.
Nick. Not out the woods yet, Nick. Almost. Okay, how you doing? Got a question about these trash trucks in mainly some of the rotation, but my first question is, the problem that I'm having, I know you guys are phasing in new vehicles and leasing out some, refuse vehicle, but, I get countless complaints about the leakage of hydraulics with the rollout dumpster trucks, okay? And people blow my phone up, raise holy hell with me, because they are paying more for refuse, and now we're increased it with the cameras coming in and having the trucks. Now, I was told that we'll be receiving new trucks in January, so I have ward meetings each month, and I promise to say, look, by January, we'll have some new trucks. But I just learned how you guys are phasing them in and phasing them out, and and I know Mr. Amos said probably about 3 years down the road, we'll be going okay.
3 years from now, we'll be
Right.
in very good shape.
So what are we doing about those trucks that are really leaking throughout the streets, that the fluids are just almost pouring out? When they ride down the street, they flow real good, but when they stop and they pick up that dumpster, I mean, you can see the hydraulic fluid just leaking out of that truck and causing, that oil spillage on the pavement. So what's happening with that? Is that being alleviated?
Turn those trucks into equipment services, and they put new hoses on them.
Okay.
Keeping up with it is a major problem.
Okay.
If
So
you
just,
have a specific address, then we can identify the truck that's leaking and get it repaired.
okay. Because, this has been taking place mainly in 26 Ward, the western part of the ward, where they have, no alleys, and the dumpsters are, taken out and
This
put
is
on the
cart,
street.
the street
Yeah, the
pickups.
street carts, street rollout dumpsters, so, and I hope you guys can solve that problem. And as far as the rotation of the trucks now, not trying to beat up on you guys, but, and I don't know how true this is, I'm just going by hearsay. And some of my constituents say, well, they got all the new trucks on the south side and north side's getting the raggedy trucks. So my question is this: how are those routes distributed as far as the supervisors distribute the routes to the truck drivers? Do the truck drivers continue to have the same routes, same trucks? Do you guys swap out, take
Generally,
different?
we distribute the new trucks by seniority. So the occasion that you mentioned was true. There was more senior drivers on the south side. They ended up getting the first round of new trucks.
Okay.
If we didn't go by seniority, which alderman gets the new truck? That's
So in other words, most of your seniority drivers, you're saying, not supervisors, drivers,
drivers.
will choose the trucks, they'll get the newer trucks.
Yes.
And most of the senior drivers work on the south side of St. Louis.
That was just the case the first go-round.
Okay,
There's just as
gotcha.
many drivers, so the next round will probably go to the north side.
Of the new trucks, or you saying with the new trucks, right? So it is true. Okay, so right now,
It's true, but it's
because
not
you go
based
by
on-
seniority.
by
I just
seniority.
want to know, hey, I'm not saying it's fair, but I just want the truth, and so,
I understand.
I can have some kind of explanation to our constituents. But I think it is unfair, but at the same token, how soon will be even out? How long is that going to take?
Well, I think you said next year we'll be giving them out evenly.
Yeah. And when is that?
I'm sorry, can you come to the mic and just identify yourself, please?
Gary Kilpler, Refugee Superintendent. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, and when will we be receiving the next round of trucks, sir?
They're being built as we speak. There'll be 6 more coming in within the next 2 months, maybe 3 months at the outside. And then 2 more cart trucks are going out for bid, and they're out for bid now, or will be in the next day or two. And those will probably be 3 to 4 months out. So
Okay, 3 to 4 months from now. Now, those trucks will go exactly where?
they will be assigned by seniority, the driver's seniority.
So, okay, I guess back to the south
And,
side.
well, yeah, it just so happened to work out that on the seniority list, with the next 6 or 8 trucks, it's gonna be half north and half south.
So when you got more seniority, so I guess the guys, they say, well, they choose where they want to work, which side of the city. Is that how it kind of goes? Is that, I mean, if I've been there 25, 30 years, they're like, look, I had this north side route. I don't want to work over there anymore. I want a south side route. Is that?
When a route becomes vacant by either the the driver's terminated, retires, whatever, that route goes out for bid. And it's open to all drivers that you can bid on that route. And that also is based on seniority. So if 3 drivers bid on an open route, the senior driver is awarded the route if he hasn't had any significant discipline in the previous 12 months.
Okay, kind of similar what the post office does. Okay. All righty, let me see, do I have any more questions? No, I guess that'll be it for right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Next, I'm sorry, yes, ma'am, absolutely, Alderwoman Boyd.
Could he come back up, please? I'm sorry, I didn't mean you sit down. Because I'm hearing you say the first round of trucks went to South St. Louis because of seniority. And
Correct.
so you saying the second round of trucks, the new trucks that are coming in, they'll be split between north and south. How they'll be split if the south already got them? So why wouldn't those trucks go to North St. Louis?
We're going by driver seniority.
But, so you don't have any senior drivers in North St. Louis?
Yes,
Okay, so what you're saying is you didn't fulfill all of those in South, so you have to complete that and then come to North?
no.
That's what I'm understanding, so
No.
okay, help
It's
me
strictly by
understand.
driver seniority combined, north and south.
Okay,
So that's just the way the seniority list works out. The next 6 or 8 trucks that are coming, being built now, is going to be divided up equally, and that's only because that's the way the seniority falls among the drivers.
so it wasn't equal for the first round, it was just for South St. Louis, but now it's equal for the second round.
The drivers that were awarded the new trucks, the first batch of new trucks, were South drivers.
Okay,
The trucks that they gave up, which were newer model trucks, those were assigned to the north section to kind of upgrade their trucks at the time. So we try even it out the best we can, but our hands are kind of tied with the seniority thing.
it's not making sense, but okay.
That's part of what the union negotiated in the memorandum of understanding.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, it's just not making sense to me because, and if I'm off, tell me. What I'm hearing is the first round of new trucks went to the senior drivers in South St. Louis, per the union negotiations.
Correct.
The second,
Just so happens the top senior ones were South.
that's fine. So then the second round of new trucks. Now, let me be clear, the second round, so what happened when you gave the new trucks to South drivers? The trucks they had, you moved to the North drivers with seniority. So now you have a second round of new trucks, and now you're gonna split it between the two. That's fine what you said, but that's not making sense to me. Because now what I'm hearing is North St. Louis didn't get new trucks. They got what South St. Louis didn't want, and it went to North St. Louis. Then when you get new trucks, now you're saying, oh, we gotta split it equally among North and South, which should have been done in the first place.
That's the way things used to be done. When new trucks came in, half went north, half went south,
Okay,
until the union negotiated this in the memorandum of understanding, that they wanted new trucks to be assigned by driver seniority.
We used to split them 50-50,
okay.
but the union didn't like that, so they negotiated by seniority. We can show you the document.
No, I understand, and I hear the documents. I just think North St. Louis got screwed per the union with this negotiation, because it should have been 50-50. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, the argument with North St. Louis and South St. Louis, there's less routes, there's less trash, and we need
For
more.
South
we-
St. Louis. It's
In
less
North
routes.
St. Louis, there's less trash and there's less routes compared, yes, because of all the vacancies. So we have to put our resources to where most of our trash is. So we've got more routes, more drivers working south than we do north, be- based on tonnage, based on,
What you picked up?
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Nick, I appreciate it. I understand. Okay, thank you. I just needed clarity.
okay.
Okay, Nick, one more question that was brought to my attention. Is there a way that each alderman can find out each location of the dumpsters that need to be replaced? Can we get like a spreadsheet or anything like that?
Randy can get that information.
Okay. All right, because I know Capital is getting ready to start up, and there's going to be the ask for all the different stuff, so it would just be helpful to kind of,
Track of where every new dumpster goes. 'Cause
Right.
There was an alderman one time that wanted to know where his new dumpster went for the last 3 years. And
Right.
he had,
I think it'd be nice if they had labels on them to show in-service dates. That way you know the last time you replaced that dumpster. Because I know there's also been accusations that aldermen have paid for dumpsters that they didn't get. Or they paid for a new dumpster, but maybe they got a modified dumpster, refurbished dumpster. So I'm just saying, that has been said. I'm not saying I verified it. I'm saying that, so that's why I was asking a couple of years ago for labels on dumpsters that would have an in-service date. That way, you know that dumpster was replaced. Because oftentimes you could look and say it was it looks shiny and brand new, so it was replaced. But, you know how people complain, dumpster has been replaced in 5 years, but if that label says in-service was June 2017, then we know that.
when we put a new dumpster in an alley, the other ones are old, and those people all start calling and saying, how come he got a new dumpster?
Right.
And I just-
Right, but what do you think about the label? Could we put like in-service labels on dumpsters? Would that cost too much?
That's something that can be done.
I mean, because it helps us, so we can go out and look at it and say, well, ma'am, the dumpster was replaced 2 years ago. You said it was replaced 6 years ago. That's not true.
The Director of Operations reminded me that there is a nameplate on the dumpster, but it's very small. It says when it was manufactured,
Okay,
but it's small.
okay,
It'd be hard to see it.
okay. Well, I'll ask him to take me out and show me where to find it, the
So we
Director of
probably need a
Operations.
bright thing.
Okay, all righty, we're gonna go ahead. Sorry, Alderman Williamson, go ahead. This is your day, Nick. It's your day to shine.
Yeah, and I know you guys have talked about it earlier as far as this recycling. And 3 or 4 years ago, when we, passed recycling and all that, we were going to save money, They sold us the idea that we're probably going to generate more revenue by recycling, but you said that China won't accept certain tonnage anymore like they did several years ago. So let me ask you this real quick. The tonnage of garbage. Now, if we scrap the recycling idea, would that save us any money by just go ahead and doing it old school like we used to, garbage and,
We're paying $34 a ton for trash.
okay,
We're paying $15 for recycling. So
Okay.
get rid of recycling, then we're gonna pay $34 for it.
okay.
Recycling it, we save the difference between $34 and $15.
So that 15 will be added on to the 34 if we combine it, so it's really no savings, is what you're saying.
All that recycling would be charged to us as trash, so
It would be
go
the
from
same,
$15 to
okay.
$34.
Right, okay, that's all I have, thanks.
Thanks, Nick. Next is we're gonna have Dottie, McDowell, right? I always want to call her Dottie Pennington. I want to respect the fact she's married. She has a new last name. So Dottie McDowell is gonna come up. She's with Citizen Service Bureau. But Dottie, come on up, introduce yourself, and I know you have a presentation.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dottie McDowell, and I'm the Neighborhood Development Executive for Neighborhood Stabilization, which includes the Citizen Service Bureau. Let me just get plugged in for a second here. So I've prepared a few slides that reference the total number of service requests that have been submitted to refuse for 2016, 17, and year-to-date 2018. Due to the volume of service requests, there were over 43,000 records, so that meant over 43,000 total service requests that were submitted to refuse for investigation and resolution. So I've just narrowed down the data a little bit. However, I can dig deeper and slice it and dice it any way you'd like. But for 2017, there were 21,896 total service requests. And year-to-date so far, we've had 2,137 service requests. In 2017, the top service requests for refuse were inclusive of container damaged, and that is 3,431 service requests, followed by container overflow and bulky, meaning the debris and garbage was spilling out of the containers, followed by the refuse not being collected, then the debris in the alley and the street coming in fifth, container blocking. It could be blocking a driveway or a gate or something like that. And the last were just citizens who requested that the foreman contact them. Seeing that this slide is a little bit, to me it looks a little bit fuzzy. Let me see if I can
Okay. Thought it was my glasses.
get help from Terrence. Still a little fuzzy. Okay, that's a little bit, that's better, a little bit better. So those were the top 6 service requests for all wards, but there are many, many different categories of service requests that go to refuse for service delivery. So the average number of days open by ward and service request type, in most cases, refuse actually closes the service request in a very short time frame from the time that a caller calls to report an issue to the time that refuse actually resolves it. And this slide actually represents the number of days opened in comparison to the number of service requests for the particular category. Let's see here. Oops. And in this case, here, we are looking at container damaged. So in looking at container damaged service request for 2017, looks like the average number of days open for the most part was 5 days, and we're looking at a particular ward here.
Yeah, Dottie, can you explain those legends? I'm kind of confused.
Yes. So across the bottom, you have the number of days that the request was opened, and that means the number of days from the time the caller called to report it to the Citizen Service Bureau to the time that the refuse department actually resolved the request. So it could be picking up the trash, moving a container to a different location, things of that nature. And right now, you are looking at, let's see here. the number of damaged containers, and we happen to be looking at the 27th ward, but if you would like to view a different ward, I can change that here. Would you like to view a particular ward?
Well, if we went ward by ward, we'd probably be here a long time.
3?
Okay.
So now in looking at the 3rd ward, it looks like, again, the average number of days was right at 5 for resolving container damaged request. And we can go ward by ward, problem code by problem code, and I'll be happy to send you the data after this meeting that's for your specific wards.
Well, actually, would you just send us the whole packet for each ward?
Yes.
So we can go through it? But go back to the slide again. I just want to,
Okay.
maybe I'm suffering from cognitive dissonance or something right now. But so, for example, what is this in relationship to that?
Okay, the 6th is the number of days that the service request remained open, and I believe that's a number 13, and there were 13 service requests for the period, which was 2017, for Ward 3, that remained open for 6 days. So there were a total of 13. There were a total of 17 requests that remained open for 5. This is the top service request for all wards year-to-date for 2018. And again, we have container overflow bulky, followed by container damaged. 3rd, refuse not collected. 4th, debris in the alley and street. 5th, forming contact citizen. And the final one, container blocking. So those are the trends that we typically see within the Citizen Service Bureau, the types of calls that we get most frequently. And again, this is another slide like the previous one where we could alter the data based upon the service request type in the ward, and I'll send you the entire packet by the end of the day.
Dottie, can you, for example, show us just using a container was not emptied, typically how many days it takes to empty the container?
Sure. Let me just. Okay, and I'm sorry, what request code would you like again?
A container wasn't emptied.
Okay. So we're going to go with overflow bulky. And would you like to see all wards?
No, we just use, because what we can do is we can use your examples to go through the whole packet that you give us.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay, so this is container overflow bulky, and we're looking at the 3rd ward. So there was, for example, the second bar, well, for the first bar, that's an indication that 0 at the bottom, that refuse resolved the matter the same day that the service request came in, and we received a total of 30 service requests for the year 2017 for that problem, well, that were resolved in less than 1 day.
okay. How do you, I know there's been confusion when a constituent calls and asks for a particular service, and then it would say abated in the system as if it was actually done, but that's not really accurate. That's just the date you sent the request, is
Well, and all the operating departments have been doing a better job in actually abated. It's a term that is a category within city works. So they could select closed, abated, pending, or whatever the case may be. And so many operating departments have been including more statuses to be reflective of the actual condition that the service request is in. So now closed actually means that the issue has been closed out. Yeah.
okay. All righty, is that the bulk of your presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Alderwoman Murphy.
I say, look forward to seeing that information. This is not necessarily refuse, but is NIS, are they up to snuff as far as the full contingency of personnel now?
Well, actually, we had 2 neighborhood improvement specialists join us yesterday.
Oh, good.
But due to budget cuts last year, we were reduced from 28 neighborhood improvement specialists to a total of 26, which means that some neighborhood improvement specialists will be sharing ward assignments.
And that 26 will stay? That will be your top number? of
To my
people
knowledge,
so
unless I
far?
hear otherwise from Paul Payne.
Okay,
So,
thanks.
Alderman Bosley.
I don't have many questions. Just wanted to say I really appreciate you all. My NSO is awesome,
thank you.
and you all do a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, you know what? I do have a question. If people call in on multiple, or well, on the same issue, and you get multiple calls on it, does it put any urgency on getting it done quicker?
I would like to say that we don't enter another service request for the same issue. If the request is still open, we'll add an additional caller to the request, but it doesn't necessarily move it up in the queue. It just shows that multiple people have called about the same issue, but we don't count it multiple times.
So if you saw that 14 people called about the same issue and 2 individuals called about, I guess, the same issue but in a different ward, there would be, I guess, no. Will the call still go in order as far as by who called first, or does it now become something that we possibly need to put some heat on because we have a lot of people calling for it?
Depending on the severity of the issue, yes, we still enter the service request and we'll call over to refuse or the operating department to let them know it's a major issue. For example, if I don't know, there's just trash and debris or dumping that's obstructing the alley and the trash trucks can't get down it, we'll call that over instead of letting it flow through the regular process. But I think a lot of times in the past, residents have had the misperception that if we have everybody call about the same thing, then it'll get done faster, and that's not necessarily the case. We just add additional callers onto the same issue, if it's still an open issue. Now, if the issue has been closed out and resolved and we get another caller, then we open up a new service request for it.
Okay, I understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Middlebrook. Okay. So are you going to stay for the sergeant's presentation?
Yes.
Okay. So now the fun begins. We're going to have Sergeant Joseph Calabro. I hope I sounded that out right. Calabro. It's Calabro, right? Calabro. Okay. Tell us what you do, Sergeant.
Well, I am the administrative aide to Lieutenant Colonel Layshock and Lieutenant Colonel Caruso. In addition to that, I've been tasked for the commissioner to take on the trash task force. So I'd like to say it's a nice honor to be here today. I've never presented before all of you. I do know many of you. I've worked with you as the community outreach officer for 10 years in both in the 1st and the 3rd district. So from that perspective, I've had a chance to meet you and your constituents. So again, I'd like to thank you and the distinguished guests that are here as well for the opportunity to speak to you on behalf of the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. With that being said, I got to tell you, sitting here, if it is still morning, I think it is morning. It's the trash task force and trash in general is overwhelming all the components involved. I honestly can say that. I mean, this was handed to me about a week and a half to 2 weeks ago to formulate a plan and a strategy and deploy the officers. And I tell you what, we've been going full speed ahead. And some of the items I'm going to talk to you today about is the actual cameras themselves, how the cameras are going to be deployed, and how the officers themselves will be held accountable on a day-to-day basis, their hours and what they do. So those are the 3 key points. So as far as the cameras themselves, we had, at one time, there were over 150 what they call Q-Star cameras that were deployed throughout the city. Since then, those particular cameras have been outdated, obsolete, broken, and no longer functional. So currently we have now 6 Q-Star cameras that are newer that have been deployed. And I'll go over that in a minute, where those have been deployed and how they are. We have currently inventoried 100 new purchased TrailNet cameras in addition to the 6 Q-Star cameras that are being retrofitted. When I say retrofitted, the boxes that contain the old camera systems are now being reutilized to put the new TrailNet cameras inside of them. So it's very good use of that. The old cameras, the Q-Star cameras, incorporated a flash. And any time that you have a flash that draws attention to it, and of course the violator knows that the camera has gone off. So a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, they would dump behind that particular camera. And knowing that the camera is facing a particular direction because the flash just told them that. So with the new TrailNet cameras, they utilize infrared technology. They're very small, but they're very clear. And I think I neglected to mention Officer Singerath, who works full-time for the Trash Task Force. He has pulled up one of those particular cameras, and he'll share his cell phone, if you have that for a minute, and he'll show you the clarity of those particular cameras and how we'll be able to see the violators, their license plates in the cars as well. So when you get a chance, Officer Singerath, if you could share that with them, if that'd be all right with you.
Yes, please.
So, so again, that type of technology is very useful. The cameras themselves, the batteries last 4 months in those, and those will be monitored and tracked. The retrofitting is done by the Streets Department and Patrick over there. And I will say, in the past week and a half, I've met so many different people that are involved with this behind the scenes. Everyone from Mrs. McDowell to Ken, is it Ken? Your assistant that works with the neighborhood improvement specialist. I'm drawing a blank on her first name. Essence Owens, lovely lady. Had a chance to talk to her. The IT department with the city and our IT department within the police department. It takes quite a few people to get it organized, but one of the things we're doing is the cameras themselves, as far as how they would be deployed. Originally we said, okay, so you have 100 cameras. You take the districts and you divide it up evenly. And then I got to thinking about it. I said, where does the actual complaints come in relative to the Trash Task Force? Well, they're filtered through, one of the areas they're filtered through is City Works. So people call that 624-4800 number, and they file a complaint that's entered into the system, or they'll go online and enter it that way, which I did myself just to test it out to see how it worked. Another way that information comes in is from the neighborhood improvement specialists. They also come in from the alderpersons as well and the block captains. It's imperative, though, that the filtering stays consistent. If it comes from the alderpersons to the NSOs, from the NSOs, getting information from the block captains, the neighborhood presidents, and their constituents, filter that up through City Works, I think it'll be much more efficient because of the next thing. We're going to treat each of those cameras as an asset, just like you currently do with the trees, the light standards, and the other various assets of the city currently owns. Those cameras, as they're installed, will be put into CityWorks on its own layer. And what I will be able to do, similar to what, I'm not used to actually talking with people behind me, so that's what makes me uncomfortable. but-
They're good people,
Yeah,
so.
no, it's not that. It's just, I feel like I'm being rude by having my back to them. But anyway, we'll have the new cameras deployed and up, overlaid over where the current crimes are, where the dumping of rubbish is. And so, similar to what we do every Thursday at ComStat, we take the crime and we take the self-initiated activity and we overlay that. And the idea is you want to make sure that your self-initiated activity in that case is right where the crime is. So you don't want the self-initiated occurring over here in these neighborhoods and the crime's over here. It's a pretty simple concept, but it takes some evaluating on a weekly basis. Same thing will happen with the camera systems. Once they're installed and we look at that and we reevaluate, here are where the calls are coming out, the service requests. This is where the dumpings occurred. These are where the arrests are occurring. These are where the summons are being issued. Okay, this is where the on-view complaints are coming from. We can then see long-term if it's working or if those cameras need to be moved. We're certainly not going to move those cameras on a day-to-day basis because it's just not feasible to do that. It would be unrealistic. But we can look at them every 6 or 9 months or so and then move them around. So with that being said, you may have the question, how many cameras are currently deployed right now? There are 10 cameras up. 6 of them are the Q-Star, 4 of them are the new trail nets. And I can actually, the actual exact location of the cameras is confidential because it's an ongoing investigation. However, I can tell you how many cameras there are per neighborhood. I happen to have that in front of me, if you're interested in that. And I could either pass that around and share that with you, or I could
Yeah, can you just share it with us?
share it with you.
cameras, yeah.
Okay. So you got Kingsway East, the camera there, 3 in Baden, Wells Goodfellow, the Patch neighborhood, Graveway Park, Lewis Place, Tower Grove South, and again, the Baden area. And I don't know if I touched on the Carondelet, but yes, that area as well. So that's where they're currently deployed right now. Approximately 3 cameras a day go up because of the retrofitting and then going out to the locations, putting them up on the poles. So we anticipate it could take as much as a month and a half to 2 months to deploy all of those cameras to those locations. In the meantime, what I would need from you and your constituents and the NSOs and the block captains and everyone else that I said is to make sure that those service requests are being completed and entered into the system. Because as these cameras go up, we're going to be looking at those to determine right off the bat where the cameras should start to go up, if that makes any sense. Is there any questions relative to that at all? Or okay. So next, other than the cameras themselves, Officer Singh, were you able to pull that up? Yes. Can you share that with the older persons? So while you're taking a look at that, I will go on to the Trash Task Force officers themselves. There's currently 10 officers working the Trash Task Force. They're allowed to work a maximum of 24 hours in a 2-week period. That's based on the regulations of our department itself, okay? They can work a maximum of 4 additional hours a day if they're already working an 8-hour day, so that's 12 hours. So if an officer is working 8 hours, they can work an additional 4 hours and a maximum of 12 hours per day. So that's very important. But we'll have 10 officers out there, and myself being number 11 as the supervisor of those 10 officers. And we hit the ground running pretty fast. I will say, when we started, there were 80 service requests a little over a week and a half ago. There's currently 10 service requests right now that have not been dispatched to the individual officers. So there's 10 of those right now, service requests that are pending, that have not been dispatched. 36.
Sergeant, what are those service requests asking for?
The service requests specifically for the Trash Task Force, dumping rubbish,
Okay,
illegal dumping,
Okay.
anything related to that.
Okay.
So I had a crash course on how the city works how CityWorks, the program itself works, and through the IT department, I was able to have each of the officers assigned access to CityWorks. That was imperative, because when they see a new service request, they will go on there with the drop-down menu and assign it to themselves, and it becomes now dispatched to them, so I can track that from the moment it's assigned to them. Once that's completed, of course, it is basically dispoed out at the end of that. Okay? The other information that comes in is from the Refuge Division and Forestry as well. We also get data from them as far as the deployment of the cameras themselves. Officer accountability, I'd like to share with you the spreadsheet that is used by me on every single officer that works the Trash Task Force. I figure if I'm going 1,000 miles a minute, each officer will be held accountable to keep up with me and the pace that we're working. So I'd like to share this with you, this spreadsheet, if I may.
You want a handout?
So not only the officers' hours are tracked, the number of summons that they've written, the number of service requests that they handle, that's a blank one there.
Gotcha, okay.
So you can see the categories across the top. The number of emails, meetings that they attend, anything related to the trash-related issues are tracked.
Gotcha.
Anytime that they go out and review the cameras themselves, and I'll touch on the cameras. The old camera system, which is really important, the old Q-Star camera system, not only was the flash drawing attention, but the officers would have to pull up underneath the pole, and it would take them as much as an hour to transfer the information from the camera to a server, okay, from the server within the camera. Then it would take 2 hours, approximately 2 hours, depending on how many photographs it had taken, to download to an old laptop that they used. That's quite a bit of time that you're underneath there waiting for that information. You're also drawing attention to yourself, again, to the location. With the new Q-Star cameras, we're now able to purchase tablets for the officers, 15 tablets, new tablets that will allow them to instantly download the photographs to the tablet, be able to evaluate if there's any evidentiary information on there, make a determination, go back to the station, and pull that up, and then continue on with their investigation. So does that, you have any questions about that, how that works? It's very efficient compared to the old way. I mean, in addition to that, the old Q-Star cameras, they may have taken thousands of photographs, and it would take so long for all those photographs to download, hours for them to download. That's all they could do their entire time, is they're downloading the photographs. Whereas this way, they can instantly download the photographs, evaluate them, and move on to the next step. Close out those cases, issue the summonses, etc. Okay? The other thing as far as the accountability of the officers themselves, each of these individual officers have been trained, not only in the CityWorks, but they have what is called a shared folder that I was able to create with the help of the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department's IT division. Each of them see the files within that shared folder, which means they all see the spreadsheet as far as the accountability, the calendar that they are working, and as I had an opportunity to speak to Ms. Charlene Deacon and the Honorable Judge Jimmy Edwards, he has requested that I send that to him about every week to a week and a half, which I can do at any given moment, because everything will be tracked from day to day. There will be no gray area. As far as the cameras themselves, like I said, as far as deployment, I think this is the best way to go about deploying them. It's not about being fair to make sure each district gets exactly 10 or 15. I think you need to put the cameras where the problem is. And that's the approach we're going to take at the beginning. I guess, in closing, I guess for my portion, and I'll be open to questions, is, again, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. This has been a whirlwind few weeks to learn everyone, and I have a great deal of appreciation for everything that you all do, and I can't imagine just alone, beyond trash, all the things that you have to keep track of. So I open it up to any questions, sir.
Okay, we'll start with Alderman Murphy.
Hello. We're so excited, everyone's all excited about this happening. So just from a realistic standpoint, have we nabbed anybody yet?
We have issued summonses out to them.
Okay.
Which means, that is, yeah, in a roundabout way, that is a way of,
We
yeah.
have. And when, okay, so when I get nabbed doing this, is there not, but I want everyone to know that I got nabbed. Because I think you know what I mean? We need to let everyone know that people are getting summonses or fined or whatever they're doing, so we can stop it from continuing. I think one of the reasons it continues is because nothing happens to anybody.
Right.
And if we could publicize, if we can get that, you know, Beth Murphy was.
Statistically, how
Yeah,
many summonses have been
were
written,
issued
how
and what
many
the fine
arrests?
was, whatever. If we can get that information as aldermen, so we can say it at our neighborhood meetings.
Yes.
And get the word out that we are catching these guys, and, you know, I think that would help
Absolutely.
eliminating some of it too. Okay,
Right.
and how many did you say are going up on a regular basis? I missed
There are
that.
3 a day
Oh, 3
because of the
wow,
retrofitting.
Okay,
Again, there are 100 new cameras, 6 existing Q-Star ones that are up, so that'll be 106, but we won't put the entire 100 up. We'll hold a couple back in case of damage,
sure.
theft, you know, inoperable. We want to make sure we have a few backups, you know,
Okay.
to replace the ones that may go down.
Okay. And they can only go up where these boxes are already
No, the
in
boxes
place?
have all been removed. They're all down.
Okay.
So.
So the
boxes-
only thing we're going to see is that little
No, you'll
thing?
see the box will be up there, but within that box will be retrofitted with the new camera.
Okay.
Within it.
Okay. So if I do, so here, what my point is, so say I get an area where somebody's calling about, you know, dumping, whatever, and there is not a box there, they cannot get a camera?
No. Oh, okay. So.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I
Okay.
understand what you're saying. So the 100 or 150 so cameras and boxes that were up at one time have all been taken down.
Okay.
Those have been taken down. And they're over at the Streets Department, and Patrick, like I said, is in the process of retrofitting
Okay.
these new cameras into those. So back up onto the pole are the 6 plus the 10 of the new ones. So you have 10 altogether. Actually, it's 6 plus the 4
Right.
new ones, I guess is 10. So there's 10 right now that are up in those locations that I had just read off. So once they see that box up there, if they're actually looking up on the pole, that means that there's a camera in that
Yeah.
area now. There's a new camera in there.
Right.
But we don't necessarily want to share where those locations
No.
are or draw attention to the box that's up on the pole.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because.
They'll just
that
go to
would-
the next block, right.
Exactly, right. And then we'd have to move the camera again and whatnot. But what they must realize is, because there's no flash, you don't know when that camera's taking the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd neglect to say here how far the distance that those cameras can reach out, but let's just say they
Okay.
can reach out pretty
Yeah,
far.
right, yeah.
'Cause
But it-
I don't know where this information goes out to.
Right. So if a problem area pops up that isn't a problem area now, say.
Correct.
I can request, not me, you know, we can get a camera put there.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alderman Bosley.
Thank you very much. How's it going today?
Going pretty good, thank you.
A pretty long meeting, right?
Right, it's been enlightening, I'll tell you that.
That's great. Everybody is extremely excited about the cameras. We definitely have a lot of dumping everywhere. A few questions that I have about them in particular are, what is the actual process when you actually do catch someone? Of course, we won't be catching them in live time. I know they're, you know, we got the P2P on them, but we won't be able to see it live, right? We'll kind of just see it when a neighbor calls and says, hey, somebody dumped in my alley. We'll check and see if we have a camera there. And if we see, let's say, a license plate number, we send them a summons to come to court.
Correct.
Correct.
Well, we
Or-
see the license plate, you're right on track, though. I guess I didn't explain that portion of it. So the camera takes a picture of the violator, the potential violator, and it's taking multiple pictures. So when it snaps a picture, it's not just snapping a picture of the person, it's snapping a picture of their vehicle as well. And that vehicle license plate. And then that license plate is ran through the Department of Revenue, and if that's connected back to the owner of the vehicle, there has to be an owner of that vehicle. That can help us start the investigation. But we can also look through the Department of Revenue, through the license plate, who the owner of the vehicle is, and the photograph through a DOR. And if that photograph over here matches this person that's over here dumping the rubbish, the two come together, the report is written, the summons is written and issued to that person, and then it's then sent over to the city councilors for prosecution. So.
Okay. So let's say we get all the way up to the city prosecutors and they go to court.
Yes.
And they are prosecuted. What is, that you know of, the maximum fine or that they actually get? Or
Sure, I would have to refer that to a judge or a prosecutor to know what the actual dollar amounts are. But I do know, for 1 second, Officer Singerath, off the top of your head, if I might put you on the spot here, just in general, just a commercial vehicle, for example, dumping large debris and rubbish, what is the fine? I think you had looked it up the other day. Is it $1,000, $5,000? It's pretty significant.
It's up to the $1,000 fine.
$1,000, maximum $1,000.
and it's okay. Well, we'll definitely dig into that. So hypothetically speaking, what happens if that person who's caught on camera does not match the description of the person who owns the vehicle? How do we go about still prosecuting the person who committed the crime, or possibly do we take a look at the person who gave them the vehicle to do it as an accessory at the same time? How does that
You're
work out?
spot on. You should come work for us. You're very good. Yes, that's exactly what would happen, sir. Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you. Also, a lot of times we'll have multiple dump sites, like we are talking about putting these the cameras in places where they're actually needed. Let's say one ward has 5 to 7, maybe 10 really bad dump spaces or dump sites that are it's frequently being used by people who are dumping. Do we, would it be an issue with putting 10 cameras in one location or in one ward, or?
Not at all, as long as at the end of the day we catch the violator or violators. It shows that it's being utilized, those cameras are being utilized properly. So if it takes, 5 cameras, 10 cameras, in some cases, some of the cameras will be tilted towards the cameras to watch the cameras to make sure no one's tampering with the existing camera that's photographing that particular alleyway, so they're across each other to prevent that from happening. But right now, there's nothing set in stone that you can only put 3 cameras at a location or 4 or 5. We're going to do whatever it takes to catch the person, because I understand some of the locations have just piles of debris and they get cleaned off and then they're put back again. The people come back. Well, at the end of the day, we want people to know out there, those violators, that the city of St. Louis is not a dumping ground for trash and debris. And like I said before, it's imperative that the citizens contact the Citizens Service Bureau and get those service requests in. Even if they've called in the past, maybe it didn't work out so well, they need to do it again, because like I said, we're on top of it from the get-go, right out of the blocks. So.
Understood. Thank you. Alderman Williamson just said earlier in the discussion that he actually caught a perpetrator dumping trash, in which I think we all have maybe seen somebody doing some type of dumping at some point in time. Of course, you don't always want to approach those individuals. You don't know, especially in this day and age, what could possibly happen. But sometimes people are driving around the neighborhood and they won't dump all of their trash in one spot. They might have so much of it, they go to multiple dumping sites in the same area. In the event that you do see that, is it possible for us to make a direct phone call to you and say, hey, we've got a vehicle that is going around the neighborhood dumping?
Yeah, I think they would have to call 911 on that to make sure. But I think at the same time, because you don't know at any given time what we're working, so it's imperative that they dial 911 and get that entered.
Right. Well, see, the thing with 911 is they will not respond to a dumping call. 9 times out of 10, they'll just write it down and say, take down a description of the vehicle. But that you know, just being realistic, there are a lot of things going on in the city. You got crime out the wazoo, so they're not going to respond quickly to somebody dumping because it's, I'm sure, 100 other calls for more egregious crimes. I guess you all are out in the field,
You can certainly
right?
call us, and if we're working, you know, I'd like them to put it through the service request so we can track it. Because we're going to turn around, we're going to at least have to enter that into the system to make sure that we track it long term. I mean, occasionally if someone, I could see that occasionally if that were to happen, and I look down and I see that, you know, this evening, you know, we have 4 trash task force officers working, I can pick up the phone to them and say, hey, I just got a tip, you know, a lead in this particular area, can you guys go over and check this out over there? That's possible. But I can't see that happening, you know, continuously. If you get, you know, 10 or 15 coming in like that, it might be unrealistic to try and deploy those back out and also be able to track them.
Right. And the reason I said it, because sometimes I do get neighbors, residents, they'll call and say, hey, I'm watching somebody dump in my alley right now, and I've told them to call 911. And they, you know, expressed to me they never saw a car drive past and nothing was done about it. So just, you know, I know you are the trash task force, so just in the event that that was to happen, and we can, because we got some neighbors that don't go to work. We got residents that on fixed income, and they want the neighborhood to look nice, so they will drive, they'll do their own investigating. They'll drive behind a person for 30 minutes to if you're going to catch them. So
Could I maybe suggest that possibly they reach out to their, if you had a chain of command, if you want to call it that maybe they get information from, like I said at the beginning, the neighborhood resident contacts their block captain, or that block captain contacts the NSO, the neighborhood improvement specialist. There's a good chance they could possibly be working at that particular time, could check it out to make sure to filter it whether, you know, it is or it isn't, and then that way we don't have thousands of people contacting us. We've narrowed it down to a small group of people that would have direct contact, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. We definitely don't want, 1,000. I just wanted to make sure, if I saw something or a neighbor called me, I just wanted to be able to directly reach out and say, hey, I've heard about this this particular vehicle on multiple occasions. Can we try to catch them today?
And you bring up a very good point, especially if a vehicle continues to do something like that, to dump rubbish like that. We can set up a particular sting in that area, where I know a lot of times with commercial vehicles, when they're picking up at the wrong time of day, we'll set up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I know Sting has done that in the past. And he sat out there and watched them, the violations at 4 or 5 in the morning, and caught them and issued the summons on the spot, because I've seen it happen. So that might be a situation like that, where you may not catch them, but you know they're a repeat offender at that particular moment, but you can set it up that you know approximately what time of day they're doing it. There's all different clues that will, to be funneled into that particular person as being the violator. So we'll just have to deal with on a case-by-case basis, I guess.
Okay. And one last question. So do residents who catch people dumping, does their video hold weight at the same time, or the same amount of weight?
We get... through the Citizen Service Bureau or the City Works, there are photographs that are attached to that. Officers that have gone out, or if they've received a particular email from someone, or on the telephone, they may say to them, could you please email to the police department your evidence that you have, and what they'll do is upload that into City Works, but they'll also use that as long-term evidence for the city councilors. Absolutely. Yes, we encourage them to do that, but we want them to do it safely.
Absolutely. Keep everybody safe. Well, I really appreciate it. I don't have any further questions. Thank you, sir.
Good time.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Hello.
Hello, ma'am.
What I've been working with my residents, because I'm real clear that you all are only there at certain times and you're not there 24 hours and you can't be in all wards. So what we're trying to encourage through our Sanitation and Beautification Committee is to have residents because so many residents now are doing cameras. So we're telling them, especially at where the dumping site, sort of point your camera toward there. So it'll be information that we can upload to give to you all to know who's doing it.
That's great.
Some people are pretty bold because they are actually taking pictures of the person that's doing the dumping. One guy was kind of slow and he posed with the person, but that's okay. Then you all called him. He had like 20 bags of leaves and he had, I mean, it was just a whole sight. And he posed with the lady, with the truck, the whole thing, so we turned that in. So we're trying to get the residents to be more proactive to assist the police task force than just calling. So that's some of the things that our committee is trying to work with them to say, well, put your camera where it's pointing toward where you know the dumping is happening, so that might be able to help you out.
Yeah,
Because I know you can't get cameras everywhere.
right.
And so we just thought that was something to assist them in that effort.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. It's
Yeah.
good thinking.
No problem.
Any other comments or questions, Alderwoman?
No.
Okay, Alderwoman Middlebrook? I have no questions. Okay, well, Sergeant, really appreciate again, everybody's excited, as you can tell. I'm gonna tell you that you have some big shoes to fill because every officer, Sergeant McLaughlin is well beloved. He worked feverishly for us, he worked very hard, he's just a great guy. So we're expecting no less from you. And we see you said about a week or so you've been on this, and it seems like you've done a lot of good work, so we're very excited. I'm even more excited to hear there's 10 officers versus 4 that we had in the
And
past.
that number,
So that's a lot of good flexibility.
that number can increase as we feel the need, by the way. That's not set in stone. So if it becomes so overwhelming during the summer months, and there's so many service requests and so many complaints coming in that we feel a need to increase that, we certainly can do that.
And we did put in the budget under the trash task force, I mean, like the next full year funding is $340,000, and our anticipation is that we can exceed 100 cameras at some point. So 100 should not be a locked-in number that we continue to use.
Right.
And down the road, you may find that other aldermen may be willing, because of the need to spend capital money on additional cameras that just pretty much stay in their water all the time.
With the cameras, the old cameras, there were 150 of those boxes, let's just say the boxes. So if we are utilizing 106 of those, that leaves what, 44 left over. So we could move it up to that level in the future.
Well, we're so
without having
excited,
to
if
buy
we can
new
have
boxes.
200, we'll have 200. I mean, that's my point. We don't want to lock ourselves into 100 or so. But I want to make a couple more, because we probably need to go ahead and wrap this up. But one of the things I wanted them to consider, and we talked about it, is a website for shaming, and also helping out the police. And what I mean by that is, first of all, the ones that you catch, put on the web, oh, we caught Johnny Jones, illegally dumping. There's a picture of him, showing what he did, as well as identifying some people, because now they're real slick. They'll come with a truck, no license. They'll take the license plates off before they go down the alley and they do their illegal dumping. But if you can see a photograph of that truck and that person, and we offer a reward, because you can still get $100 or whatever it is for turning in somebody for illegal dumping, unless they changed it. But I think you can still get a reward for doing that. That may be a way to assist the police as well, because it's like, well, that's my neighbor 2 blocks over, so-and-so. That's his truck, and then all you got to do is, like you say, you match them up.
Yeah,
when you go to
especially
the
when you
house.
have a witness too, sir.
Huh?
If you have a witness, that helps as well, and that's what those people would be, so.
Right, but I'm just saying, if you took a picture, now, if it has a license plate, your job is a little easier in the example that you gave. But if you took a picture and it's a white Dodge Ram pickup and a black or white guy, so you have no idea who that is, because there's no identifying markers on the truck or the license plates. But if you put it on a website, yeah, you'll get a witness, because that person wants $100 or whatever. And so Pam will call and say, hey, so I know who that is, Jeffrey Boyd. He lives at such and such an address. It was just a thought that maybe we can expand to that.
Okay.
But anyway, that's all I have. I did want to thank you so much. I did want to make a little commentary about something I learned today, and that I think we might want to work on, and this is to help Nick Young and Randy. I don't think it's fair that some aldermen hold back and not allocate funding for dumpsters. That's not fair. That's not fair to all the aldermen that do participate, and their constituents deserve that particular service. So I'll be advocating for that money to be taken off the top that 20,000 or whatever it is and put in board bill number 1, because that creates fairness. And I think the aldermen have to be taken out of that whole situation where, you know, there's pressure to add more money for dumpsters or whatever. We give all the money to refuge, and refuge spend it the way it should be spent. That's, you know, and then we have the money from the $3 to match. So that's one proposal I have to kind of solve that particular problem. But Nick, we're going to have something in place out of fairness to landlords who have investment property that's vacant, because I don't think it's fair that you have to pay $14 a month for service that you're not using. So that is something I'm willing to work with you on, and the administration, to try to create some kind of fair and equitable way of doing that, because we can't just say because we don't have the resources, we're just going to keep taxing people, because that's not fair. So those are 2 walkaways that I have that I like to work on to be supportive and, you know, delivering better services. Any other comments from the committee, that recommendations that you may want to offer up, Alderwoman Boyd?
Is this for refuge?
Yes. Well, in refuse, forestry,
Forestry, and-
Citizen Service Bureau, as it relates to trash service and.
Okay, and I guess on my part, I know as a elected official that it's real clear that the community has to support you all to make sure that you all are knowledgeable of the challenges that you run into. And so I'm kind of with Alderman Boyd to make sure that we support you all as much as possible, but the community has to step up a little more to kind of make sure that you all are aware of some of the issues. And I think Nick and Randy are real clear on some of the hot spots I have in my ward, and you all get the calls so you know where the hot spots are. So I think at the end of the day, from all departments, we need to have a plan, because I'm just real clear, if we don't have plans in place to be proactive, we'll keep, and no pun intended, we'll keep in that firefighters mode, just putting out fires. And I just think we need to start being strategizing on what we're going to do and how we're going to correct issues, so we don't keep beating our head against the wall, because you know what that means when you keep doing the same thing over and over again. So anything I can do to help you guys, I would appreciate it. Anything your supervisors need from me, please don't hesitate to call, but I just think we have to come up with a plan. And like I told the Trash Task Force, we're trying to encourage our community to start utilizing their cameras to pick up some of that stuff, to take some of that off of you guys.
Alderman Middlebrook. Okay, again, I want to thank everybody for coming. I think this is very enlightening. Sorry it took so long, but, you know, if you want to make government work, you want to be better efficient, you know, you have to put time into the process. So this is what this is about, a process, and trying to make the delivery of services a lot better. So again, thank you. And with that, the Streets, Traffic, and Refuse Committee is adjourned.